Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, we have another 7-round mock draft for you. It's Mock Draft Monday, right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
A podcast begins. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase alongside my co-host Gino Camilleri. We dive into what the Eagles are going to do at 10th overall, what they're going to do at 30. Gino, on today's 7-round mock, we're going to explore some different options because, as I mentioned on the show last week, Howie Roseman has stand pat with his own selection he was supposed to have based on standings only one time since he's come back in 2016. So that's why Mock Draft Monday for us now more is just pretty much exploring every scenario.
I believe one of my favorite Howie Roseman quotes was when he got that pick from the Saints and he had that second pick in the first round and he's saying, I just want optionality. I want the option to go and do different things. And that's the thing with Howie Roseman. He might be playing blackjack and you look at the book and you're like, oh, let's hit on a soft 17 or soft 16, whatever you prefer. And Howie Roseman's like, no, I'm going to change the game. I'm going to do something completely out of pocket, which people wouldn't expect, which is kind of a conundrum to me, Lou, because you have the most data points of any NFL general manager on what to expect in terms of what they value position-wise, where they value them in the draft. And you have nearly 12, 13 years of data to do that off of. So why teams couldn't predict the Jordan Davis move last year? Baltimore, they wanted him. You didn't think that Howie Roseman was going to go up and get him. We kind of knew that that was the inevitable pick. And if anybody really pays attention to Philadelphia and our good friends over at Locked On NFL Draft, they didn't mock Bijan Robinson to the Eagles at 10 because we've been telling them, guys, it's not going to happen. Like, there's no way the Eagles spend a top 10 pick on a running back.
I don't think it's going to happen at 30. I can guarantee you it's not going to happen at 10, Gino. And that's the thing with these mock drafts, though. We do like to explore every scenario because the Eagles, they're pretty predictable about what positions they like to go for early in the draft. We also know that they're predictably unpredictable with where they're going to select because they always trade up and they always trade down. Again, last year is the perfect representation of Howie Roseman. He trades down with the Saints and collects a first-round pick in this year's draft. He trades up to go get Jordan Davis. Then he trades out of another pick to get a veteran in A.J. Brown. So he pretty much did everything you could think of with trades in last year's first round. This year, he doesn't have 3 first-round selections, but he does have 2 to get creative. And so it's kind of, Gino, again, we've mentioned this on the podcast many times. He is just taking this luxury of having a lot of top picks in top rounds, and he's stretching it out from year to year. So like last year, he can kind of do everything. Yeah,
you still have to make the tree of how that trade started from the Carson Wentz thing and everything that came from it. And Howie Roseman will always try to extend his resources. And have we talked about the idea of potentially adding another first-round pick in 2024 through trading down if a team needs a quarterback? There's a ton of smoke around the idea that teams might take Hendon Hooker in the top 10
I've heard that.
Above guys like Will Levis that we've been saying are locks in the top 10. That could be the greatest scenario to happen to Philadelphia, that a team is sitting there at 10, Hendon Hooker is on the board, Will Levis is on the board, and they're like, all right, first round pick next year. Teams have done this all the time. That's the going rate. And Howie Roseman continues to build off of this tree while still having a first round pick this year.
It's going to happen. There's
going
to be movement. Whether he moves up or down, the tree is going to continue to extend for sure. So, Gino, let's start this thing up. It is yet another Mock Draft Monday here on Locked On Eagles. We have this is our 4th last mock draft. We've got 3 more after this.
Yes, sir. So we got 4 weeks until the draft from Thursday. So that means we have today, next week, the penultimate one, the week before the draft, and then, of course, the week of the draft. So we're still having fun with these things, and it is unpredictable with Howie Roseman. I know I said it was predictable with Jordan Davis. Yeah, when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it, but there's still time for teams to make trades into the top 10, out of the top 10, even before we get to draft night. That has happened time and time again, and we saw that already this year.
twice in the last 2 years. So he's traded on draft night, but he's also traded, like you said, in the weeks coming up to the draft. So here we go. Let's start this off. We are on the clock at 10th overall. Gino had the top 10 pick last time, so I've got it this time around. He'll be picking at 30. Looking at the board, what happened 1 through 9, nothing super surprising. All 4 quarterback prospects went, I believe, right? Will Levis went? Yep, he went 4th. I just was surprised. Normally, Anthony Richardson goes ahead of Levis. Here, Levis goes ahead to the Colts. And then, of course, your unicorn defensive linemen go, as much as I would love them. Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter, they all go in the top 6. Then we had your boy Christian Gonzalez go, the Oregon cornerback, and then a receiver, actually, to the Bears. Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. So, Gino, on the board here, some of the top prospects that I really like, of course, Devin Witherspoon, I think might be the top corner from Illinois. You've got Peter Skoronski, the perhaps top tackle from Northwestern. We've mentioned the name Kalijah Cansey a lot from Pitt. There's a lot of options here that I like, and Witherspoon might be the top option. But, Gino, in this scenario, if I'm Howie Roseman, it might not be a huge market for teams wanting to trade up because all 4 of those quarterback prospects went. But let's say a team really wants Skoronski or somebody really wants Devin Witherspoon. Could those guys fit in Philadelphia? Sure. But when you look at Witherspoon, Skoronski, Cansey, heck, even Brian Branch, Lucas Van Ness, Myles Murphy doesn't show up here because he's too low on these rankings, and Nolan Smith from Georgia. There's such a giant group of prospects I kind of like here that I think, hey, if I move down 4 or 5 spots, collect some more picks we could really use on day 2 or day 3, because we don't have a lot this year, we can still get one of those guys. So I want to explore trading down from pick 10. So hypothetically, let's say a team like New England wanted to move up for Skoronski, or the Green Bay Packers wanted to get Jordan Love a new wide receiver, right? Like Quentin Johnson from TCU. That's something I would like the Eagles to explore. So on PFF's mock draft simulator, of the teams interested, the most are the Lions and the Buccaneers at 18 and 19. Gino, I feel like that's a little too low. So I'm going to try to see what we can do with, let's try for New England, right? I think moving down 4 spots is good.
I still think you can grab one of those top edge guys. How do you value Devin Witherspoon? Do the Eagles want to go that route where they go a more undersized outside corner? I don't know.
I love it for sure. If they take Witherspoon at 10, I'm not going to bat an eye. But I think in this scenario, they might trade down.
I agree as well. I think they still have their pick of the litter. They're not going to force a pick.
Yeah.
And you still have so much depth on the defensive line. Like, take your pick of Myles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness. If you want to redshirt Skoronski, you still can. But Howie Roseman knows that if those guys are equally valued on his board, he will go back a couple spots, because he's not going to take a guy that is a tier 2 guy with a tier 1 pick if they don't have a tier 1 player. So this is absolutely a potential that could happen. And what is the going rate to move down, like a 3rd round pick? Eagles need to recoup premium top 100 picks. I think that's fair if you give up if New England gives up a 3 to come up 4 spots.
Right. And then maybe, I don't know, do the Eagles throw in like a 7th in 2024 or something just to add in? I feel like another pick normally happens, but I feel like a 3rd is pretty fair. I mean, to move down 4 spots.
Absolutely. That's the going rate. That's the Eagles have done that to trade up. And look, New England accepts that pick. Let's see what they do with that pick.
All right. So they take Devin Witherspoon.
I think that makes a lot of sense for them.
I think that makes sense
on the outside. Joey Porter
and then
Jr.
right in front
with
of
Sauce
us,
Gardner.
Yeah,
I know. Length,
so Joey Porter Jr. across from Sauce is nice for the Jets. He just went at 13. Peter Skoronski went to the Texans at 12. Lucas Van Ness for the Titans at 11. All 3 of those guys would have made a lot of sense for the Eagles, but look at the board still. Kalijah Cansey, Brian Branch. You've got Nolan Smith and Myles Murphy. Gino, I am talking myself into the Nolan Smith to the Eagles hype right now. I watched a lot of him today, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm one of those film junkies that broke down every game of his, but taking a look at him today, you can see, even for the short amount of time I watched, you can see the explosiveness. You can see the athleticism in the open field. You can see that kind of Hassan Riddick type of player. I mean, that spin with that counter spin is just absolutely incredible. And it doesn't, even for being an undersized player, doesn't look like he gets overpowered a whole lot by tackles like Riddick. He's still very effective in the run game. I like Myles Murphy a lot too. His traits are off the charts. I think I like them both over Van Ness, but I'm going to go with Nolan Smith. He's boys with Jordan Davis. He played on that line 2 years ago. Nakobe Dean as well. I'm going to continue the Eagles trying to just rebuild that elite 2021 national championship Georgia defense.
And I think that aligns a lot with the edge type of players that Sean Desai had when he was in Seattle. When you look at the Uchenna and Nwosus of the world, the LJ Collier pick, as infamous as it was, that's the prototype for guys that Desai likes in his system. He likes length. He likes athleticism. He likes versatility. Nolan Smith is just going to be another guy in that bullpen, right, Lou? And Brandon Graham is going to be gone next year.
He's turned 35 today.
What a better way to have that third edge rusher, somebody that could just be in that rotation with Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick for years to come, Lou. And the defensive line depth on the interior is still deep. Corner depth in this class is deep as well. I think this was a great move. You pick up that third round pick to get an extra selection, which is prime territory in this class. They made that, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah made that statement last year that he was like, between 1 and 3, those guys were all relatively the same. And then between 4 and 60, they were all very close as well. I think there's a heavier top this go around. You still got your top guy, but that middle region is insanely heavy. And I could see Howie Roseman wanting to get more top 100 picks in this class.
And then you collect another third rounder. They like to be 4 deep on the edge. Now you have Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, and Nolan Smith. And Graham will probably be gone next year or the year after. And boom, Sweat, Reddick, and Smith is your big 3 on the defensive line. And you continue this elite pass rush for sure. And Kancey would have made a lot of sense. And maybe it's a bigger need. And, you could have went, if Joey Porter Jr. was there, I would have considered it. But I think Nolan Smith was the best combination of positional value, upside, and long-term need there. So I like that pick. Gino's going to be on the clock at 30, guys. Coming up next right here on Mock Draft Monday, it's the Locked On Eagles podcast, and it's brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard us talk about this mobile game, and we could not tell you how much fun we had during the 2022 season playing as a general manager. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty. Neither one of us won our Locked On League. That went to Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers. When you play Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team, just like on Mock Draft Monday, as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build a historic dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms. It's pretty intense, in-depth, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, player personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season, all in this challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go when you want to, wherever you want to. Locked On Eagles listeners, you get a 100% free boost to your franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in all caps. It's in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps, so make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on your app store. It's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Eagles fans, we are continuing on this Monday edition of Locked On Eagles. And when it's Monday in the offseason, what does that mean? Mock Draft Monday. So in the first segment, Gino and I spent the time exploring a potential trade down in round 1. Gino, we made a trade with the New England Patriots, moving down from the 10th overall pick to 14. We felt like there were 6-7 prospects that were worth that pick. But would we rather have Myles Murphy straight up, or Lucas Van Ness or Joey Porter Jr. right at 10, or who we eventually took, edge rusher for Georgia, Nolan Smith at 14, and an extra third-round pick in this draft? And I thought it was a no-brainer to move down.
Agreed 100%. Bill Barnwell put out an article today about what each team should do. This is on ESPN.com at the respective picks. And he agreed with us. He said at 10, the Philadelphia Eagles should trade down. Howie Roseman is one of the most analytically inclined general managers in the league. So the Eagles are always going to lead toward trading down.
Like, unless there's Jalen Carter falls, or if, God forbid, Tyreek Wilson was somehow available. Unless that's the case, or somebody falls to 10, like a quarterback, and you can move down that dramatically, I think a smaller move down makes a lot of sense.
I totally agree. And now you're in this position at 30 to
what do you think, man?
I like a name that I see on the board simply because of length, of traits, and at a position to where you could truly redshirt this guy and hopefully develop him into the next right tackle. I like the idea of adding DeJuan Jones, one of those Ohio State guys. They just have that freakish length that Jeff Stoutland loves on the outside. If you look at Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, those guys have long arms. They're athletic. If he could get Jordan Mailata to be a starting left tackle in the league, there's no reason somebody with the talent and the production of DeJuan Jones can't fill in. And you're not taking that guy at 10 or even 14. You're still going to have a guy that can come in and play right away with that 14th selection. And now you have a guy that, fans are going to be okay that one of the top first round picks is going to go and play. The other one is looking towards the future. And that's something as well. Howie Roseman always looks to fill in holes with potential, with guys that could potentially play now. But in the end of it, he's trying to get that guy by his third year, that year where you're going to sign him to that extension, to be ready to get an extension and be worthy to garner more money. And the Eagles have to do that.
Gino, I feel like, too, with Lane Johnson, he signed that extension. And so you think he's here at least 2 more years, maybe now 3, as that contract takes him through 2026. But I heard that podcast with Lane last week with Jeff McClain. And with Lane, it's a struggle. It's an up and down relationship with football. Right now, he's at the height of his powers. He's the best tackle in the NFL, regardless of which side. But the Eagles need that long-term player opposite Jordan Mailata. And not to mention, Gino, you lose Andre Dillard. You need tackle depth. Like, you need backups. Having a guy with 5 years of cost-controlled rookie money, I'm all in on that. I think, and Jones played on the right side with Ohio State because Paris Johnson was on the other side at left tackle.
Bingo.
So I like your logic a lot there at number 30. And that's what the Eagles do. Trenches, edge rusher, and tackle for the first round. So we're on the board here again at 62. Some other positions, I feel like they could go for. Running back, tight end, maybe receiver, right guard, right? I mean, Cam Jurgens probably going to start there this year, but you can use another offensive lineman still, even if you're taking a tackle at 30. I think safety as well. Pretty much everything's on the board.
There's a name that I see that I like, and there's a lot of positions that I like as well.
I didn't even mention corner.
There you go. I think this is where that corner depth really gets into play.
I think you got to take one with one of those top 3 picks.
You're not going to get that perfect guy like a Christian Gonzalez, a Devin Witherspoon at 62, but there are a lot of traitsy guys that the Eagles like that can play boundary corner, that are athletes and tested well, not just on the field, but at their pro day as well. And I see you hovering over a name there that I think we both can agree on. That would be a very Philadelphia Eagles pick at 62.
Yeah, I think Garrett Williams, the Syracuse corner, was, for the most part, the majority of the season was seen as a second-round prospect, has that injury. And so that, I think, hurt his, stock a little bit. But I think in round 3 at 62, this is really good value. Doesn't have to come in right away and be a starter. He can develop and get healthy behind Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Suddenly you got Garrett Williams, Greedy Williams. You've got as well Zach McPherson. That's a lot of young Josiah Scott. It's a lot of young depth at corner that you have not had in the past. So I think this is a great pick at 62.
And we finally get a cornerback from Syracuse. We've been pounding the table for the last couple of years to get one of those guys. They finally get one, and it makes a boatload of sense when you look at how he plays on the outside. He's going to be versatile. He's going to use his length. If the Eagles are going to take a cornerback, I can guarantee that guy is long and he can run very fast in the open field.
Second round pick for a corner, Gino. It's the first time they've done that since Sidney Jones in 2017. And before that, I mean, it had been a long time. So we go edge, tackle, and corner in the first 2 rounds. We're on the clock. Remember, we have 2 third-round picks now here because we moved down with New England. So we're on the clock at 76. What are you thinking here?
I think we could potentially go a skill position player here. I think tight end and running back could be the move. If you look at running back, Devin Ashane and Zach Charbonnet came off 2 out of the last 3 respective picks.
Tajay Spears. Do you think he's going to be available at 76? Like, let's be realistic too, right?
I don't know. Thor Nystrom, from formerly of CBS Sports, put out today in his mock draft that the Eagles take Tajay at 62. So could he be there at 76? Yeah, it's really what you value.
Guy, I think, for us.
Absolutely. I think they would value tight end a little bit more with this pick, though, because of what they can do and what they're trying to get in terms of playing that 12 personnel. Why not?
Can you imagine if they did it twice?
Yes. Yeah. Do it twice. Go to the well. FCS out of the national champion South Dakota State Jacks. we're going Tucker Kraft. I think it just fits the perfect mold, the perfect replacement for Dallas Goedert. Inevitably, when Dallas makes his Zach Ertz exit, but right now you're going to bring in Tucker Kraft to be a guy that is going to catch the football, bring you much more upside down the field than Jack Stoll or Grant Calcaterra has given you at all. And now you can run that 12 personnel that the Eagles have wanted to run because they were one-handed just having Dallas Goedert. When he was on the field, more than likely, he's going to be running a route. Yes, they did use him in blocking, but when it's Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll, or Calcaterra, anybody that has half a brain can understand that the ball is probably going to his way. Tucker Kraft now would take a lot of that pressure off of Dallas just being the number one guy. And Lou, you kind of replace tight end 2 and wide receiver 3 all in one gig.
That's the point I was going to make is I feel like now that most of free agency is passed, most of the wide receivers have been taken. You're trying to get that competition for Quez Watkins, that more reliable fourth target. You don't have that at receiver right now with Pascal gone. Could you draft a receiver right now and that's your competition? Sure. But I feel like the value, that fourth target, Gino, that competition for Quez or that upgrade might come at tight end, not at wide receiver 100%. By getting that second guy to use in 12 personnel because Jack Stoll is not that player. I love that you went back to the well of the Dakotas. The Eagles like to go there for sure. And I think that's a good pick in round 3. And then here's our original pick at 94 overall in the 3rd round. Gino, I'm looking at the safeties. I think they got to get in another young safety here. They could bring in another veteran in this scenario. I know they like Reed Blankenship a lot. You've got Terrell Edmonds, but I like some of the talent. I think JL Skinner at Boise State doesn't probably fit this defense, but traits central. Christopher Smith, I like from Georgia. I think Jair Brown from Penn State, I think is a little underrated in these PFF rankings. Gino, I think he's worth this 94th pick.
In this class, you're going to have to try and skim through and find the guys that can cover deep. A lot of these guys are 10 yards and in this class, as opposed to past years. If you look at that Nasir Adderley, Darnell Savage type of class where those guys can play single high, you're going to probably find a guy that is a 2 high most of the time type of player. Reed Blankenship and now Terrell Edmonds are going to take any 1 high situations. Can this guy right away be in those sub packages, be potentially that 6th guy off of the bench, that dime package player? And Penn State safeties, Lou, we've loved these guys the last 2 years. When you were watching the guys last year in that class, it's so hard to not see Jair Brown on that tape. And I think
when you're watching Jaquan Brisker a lot,
exactly,
you notice Jair Brown, and
because they work in unison, Lou. You have to see those guys when you're watching.
And the Eagles don't really have. They're both safeties, both sides. They do sides more than they don't really have a traditional box safety and a free safety. But when you talk about skill set, Edmonds and Blankenship, I think fit more of the. They're not like Edmonds, I don't think is a 10-yard and in safety like primarily, but I think they fit that more. I think both the safeties you already have. And a lot of these guys, as you mentioned, like Skinner is that kind of guy. I think Brown he makes the most sense with, like you said, if you're in single high, who do you trust the most? So I'm going to bring in the Nittany Lion with this final 3rd round selection.
I think our Eagles fans will love it. Anybody in the state of Philadelphia love it. We are. And we loved Brisker last year, Lou, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And I like the idea of going to schools that have produced high-level talent there. Like if you look at Illinois and their defensive backfield, it makes all the sense in the world. These guys have been coached exceptionally well. Notre Dame offensive lineman, Wisconsin offensive lineman. When you find the well that produces good talent, there's guys like even Jonathan Sutherland on that Penn State defense that played safety as well that you could get in the back half of this draft that are high-end athletes. So I like what Penn State puts out in their defensive backfield. If you wanted to go and get Joey Porter Jr., you saw plenty of Brown on his tape as well. So I'm with you. I love that pick, Lou.
All right, Gino, that was a lot of picks, the most we've had in Mock Draft Monday this year because of that trade down with the Patriots gave us an extra 3rd. So we had 2 firsts, a 2nd, and 2 thirds to use. We've got 2 7ths to round out Mock Draft Monday on the other side right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. All right, Eagles fans, we're back. It's Mock Draft Monday right here on Locked On Eagles. Louie DiBiase alongside Gino Camilleri. We are rounding out our yet again, another 7-round mock draft on your beloved Birds with the draft just 4 weeks away. And Gino, so far, I think we've crushed it. We've gone edge rusher with Nolan Smith. We went tackle with Dawan Jones from Ohio State. We went corner in round 2 with Greedy Williams of Syracuse. Then in round 3, we go tight end.
Williams? Garrett
and
Williams.
Safety.
Garrett
Williams.
Williams.
Oh,
right.
I'm thinking of, yes, that's right. Yep. Sorry about that. Thinking greedy. So we have corner, and then we took a tight end and a safety in round 3. South Dakota State boy. I'm forgetting the name. Tucker Kraft. And then we also in round 3 took Jair Brown, the safety from Penn State. So we got a weapon. We've got a couple defensive backs. We went trenches. This is why it's great to have a lot of draft picks, Gino, because you can really get in the nitty gritty of what you want to do everywhere across the roster. So we've got 2 7ths now. This is your pick. What are you thinking? Running back? We still have not taken a defensive tackle. I still think a lot of options we can go with.
I think running back in the 7th round is going to be very intriguing if you want to pull up the board there, because there are a lot of guys in this territory. Mohamed Ibrahim, Travis Dye, that have produced at high levels and sustained big-time injuries towards the back half of their career. Mohamed Ibrahim has been injured multiple seasons, but he's also a multiple-time 1,000-yard rusher. Travis Dye, I watched 4 years at Oregon until he goes to USC, was an unbelievably good inside the tackle runner, happened to tear his ACL late in the season. That's where you're going to bet on these guys. That's where you're going to find those diamonds in the rough, and you're going to say, when this guy has a big game for like 75 yards, like, how did the Eagles get him? Oh, well, You go back down the well. He had those injuries. Teams might not take a risk on them. But looking at the Rashaad Penny pick, pick up, if you're explosive and you have produced, even though you had that injury history, at running back, they are willing to take a chance on you. And I think Mohamed Ibrahim makes a ton of sense. He's more durable than a guy like Travis Dye, more durable than your Tavian Thomases of the world, your Chris Rodriguez, the guys that are also on the board there as well. And if he is healthy, he has led a committee. If you look at Minnesota in 2021, they had 7 different running backs start a game for them, if I'm not mistaken. Mohamed Ibrahim, he's the guy if need be. He's a committee back if need be, but you're betting on traits and production. Well, you just hope that knee holds up, much like you do with Rashaad Penny, and you can hopefully make it work.
Well, and you can make the case too for Trey Sermon, who's had injuries in the past too. You put all these guys together in a committee with Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. You get all these players in, and Gino, I feel like a couple of these players with an injury history, but they have incredible upside physically. I think a few of them are going to hit.
You'd have to believe so, and that's what the Eagles have done with these later picks, right? They've taken the guys that, hey, it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but he fills a role for us. We're not using a high pick on him. Yeah, maybe does he make it to the undrafted free agent market? Potentially. But if you want to take that risk and make sure he doesn't, go and get him.
For sure. All right, Gino, we've got 1 pick left here at 248. We haven't gone guard or tackle, maybe bring in another defensive tackle. At this point, though, this late in the draft, just try to go value. I feel like best player available, but I think it would be nice to get in another tackle on the defensive line, just to, continue to add depth.
Well, you only got 2 left here on PFF. I know there's a lot of guys at CGS that we had that should be on this board, but hey, that's for another day. Dante Stills is a player that, does he perk your eyes up a little bit? I mean, I guess late in this class, but
again, with kind of a flyer.
Yeah, but do you go offensive tackle, Lou, where I was talking about the traits type of thing, where or maybe at right guard as well, where you fall in love with the idea of adding an athlete who maybe sustained an injury and could potentially be a depth piece for you, because you're going to have to get depth inside as well. If Cam Jurgens now moves to right guard after the departure of Isaac Seumalo, who's the next man off the bench at potentially center, maybe a swing type of guy, maybe an Oregon Duck that happens to go by the name of Alex Forsyth. I don't know. Just an idea.
I didn't think
Forsyth is a beast. He's a beast, man. And he's played banged up so many games to the point where you're like, how is this guy still playing? Towards the end of his career, he was just super beat up, and he played through a lot of injuries, and he played at a high level on the Oregon line that was ranked highly multiple years with him leading the way as well. And it just makes a lot of sense to go offensive line. I like the idea of defensive line. I wish they had more prospects on this board there, but hey, man, when you walk away with Nolan Smith at the top of it, I think it's hard to complain.
So let's recap the show. Let's finish up Mock Draft Monday by taking a look at what we just did in our 7-round mock draft. 14th overall, we traded down with the Patriots and took Nolan Smith from Georgia. Then at pick 30 in round 1, Gino went with Dawan Jones, the tackle from Ohio State. And then cornerback Garrett Williams from Syracuse in round 2. I love the Tucker Kraft pick in round 3. At 76 overall was the extra third we got from the Patriots. We've got a South Dakota State tight end duo. Get that other 4th target along with Quez Watkins. Got to bring another passing option behind Brown, the big 3, Brown, Smith, and Goddard. Then we took a safety that I feel like fits that single high look, Jair Brown from Penn State at 94 overall. And then we rounded out with our final 2 picks in the 7th round, a running back from Minnesota, Muhammad Ibrahim, and a center/guard from Oregon, Alex Forsyth. Gino, PFF gave us a C+. I think we nailed this draft, though. Forget that grade.
I 100% agree, Lou. I think we hit need. I think we hit current need and long-term need. I think we hit what the Eagles do in terms of profiling when it comes to body type, when it comes to the schools that they like. We know that they've been going SEC heavy the last couple of years, so why wouldn't it be a Georgia tackle to start it all, or a Georgia defensive end? And Ohio State plays in big-time football games, and Dawan Jones has put up big-time production. That just makes sense. Trenches, production, health, all those things go together with athleticism as well. And depth-wise, Lou, man, this might be my favorite that we have done, to be honest with you. I think we got a lot. Mo Ibrahim, one of those guys is going to fall out of the draft, even, and the Eagles are going to hit on another gem in the undrafted free agent pool. And we're going to say Miles Sanders, who hopefully in a couple months from now, that would hopefully be ideal.
I agree. I like that we traded down from 10. We explored that avenue. We've got 3 more mock draft Mondays for you. So we're going to try to trade up at times, maybe from 10, maybe from 30 or 62. We could try to move down from 30, still have some wiggle room to just, again, lay out every scenario because with Howie Roseman, you really just never know. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles. 3 more mock draft Mondays, but we've got shows for you Tuesday through Friday as well after mock draft Monday on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. That'll do it for today's edition of the show. Thanks for making us a part of your day and making Locked On Eagles your first listen every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, from free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading, thank you for watching and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.